Well, it is Friday on the Daily Drive, and we are wrapping up a story about a guy named Daniel who not only survived living in a crazy, godless culture, but the dude thrived in it, stood out as the real deal. His authenticity, his humility, his courage, his excellence, his work ethic, his integrity and character honored God and made people, even kings, take notice of just how good and great Daniel's God was. We read yesterday the story of Daniel getting thrown into a pit with hungry lions. And once again, it was his consistency, his faithfulness, and his worship of God that landed him there. Some jealous co-workers put together a scheme and coerced the king into signing a new law that would execute anybody who was caught worshiping any other god but the king. And in a weak moment, the king signs it. And then they turned Daniel in. And the king highly valued and respected Daniel. And so he has one of those, what in the world have I done kind of moments. Well, as we saw yesterday, God delivers Daniel, much to the delight of the king. And the king has those other jealous guys fired, and they are fed to the lions. Their plan kind of backfires. And then the king writes this new piece of legislation, chapter 6, verse 26. This is what the king decrees. I decree that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble with fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and he will endure forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his rule will never end. He rescues and saves his people. He performs miraculous signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. And so Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. You know, I love the simplicity of that last line. Daniel, he just made a difference during all these different reigns. I did a little research, a little math. From 605 BC to 538, 67 years on the job. He was in his 80s in the lion's den, just faithfully serving God with his real deal kind of life in the middle of a place he never wanted to be and never dreamed he'd be. I can remember a few years ago visiting my Aunt May. She was 93 years old. She lived in a little town called Georgetown, Kentucky. She grew up in a place called Muddy Ford, Kentucky, and that's what it was, just a muddy ford in a river. I remember going to her house when I was a kid. They had an outhouse. They didn't have indoor plumbing. Had a coal stove that they cooked on. We'd have a chicken for dinner, and they'd actually go out and get a chicken and wring its neck, and she'd pluck it, and we'd have fried chicken for dinner. She was married to her husband for over 30 years. He passed away. Her new husband, she was married for 22 years. The first one died of emphysema. The second one died of cancer. She was a wife. She was a mother. She was a nurse. She worked in a ballpoint pen factory until she was 88 years old when she retired. Well, she didn't really retire. She only quit because the factory closed. And I listened to her talk. We're sitting out on the porch. She was talking about her job. And she talked about how she missed the girls at work. And I thought, well, how old are the girls? And she talked about her love for her family and how she had just clipped some roses out of her garden and she took them next door to the new young couple who had just moved in. And then as we're talking, just out of the blue, she just burst out. You know, I love Jesus. I just love him. I do. And I prayed with this 93-year-old lady and got in my truck, and the tears just began to flow. And I thought, here's this simple farm woman who just loved her husbands. She worked hard. She built friendships. She was loyal on her job. She helps her neighbors, and she just loves Jesus. And I thought to myself, I may not be able to write a clear definition of authenticity, but I know it when I see it. And she's sitting right over there on that front porch. What about you? What would people say about you? Oh, he has so much character, so much humility. She is so faithful, such a hard worker. What a team player. They love God. They have consistent core values. They have clearly defined lines that they have drawn in their heart. And no matter what happens, they're just going to honor God with their life. I know. I go to school with them. I work with them. I play on the same team as them. I live down the street from them. I go to church with them. Now, they certainly aren't perfect, and they need God's grace as much as the next guy. But with his help, they are becoming God's best version of themselves. And I can't really define it, but I know it when I see it. And they're the real deal. And may that be said of all of us. Man, I hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you back here on Monday.